Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Brandon Watts. Today we're going to be talking about how to edit natural light single frame exposures for interior real estate photography. We'll be doing some white balance adjustments, some adjustments to the highlights and shadows. We'll be doing some object selection as well as some masking so that way we can take out certain parts of the image that we don't want affected. But before we do, I want to talk to you about my actions that are coming out soon. I know I've been taking a little bit of time, but I've realized that there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to be asked in terms of how to use it and how to set it up. These actions are set up for my A7 III and A7S III, so anybody who's not using those cameras will have to do some adjustments to the settings. They're easy adjustments, but they are necessary for them to work. I've also created, I'm about 15 videos deep on a little mini course that will help you learn how to use these actions. They go through various scenarios like small rooms, open floor plans, kitchens, how to save bright spots that are being caused by the flash spots. So look forward to that coming soon, but also let me know in the comments what platform you think I should put that little mini course on, and then we'll take it from there. I'll allow people to ask questions and I will answer them with other videos so that way it continues to help you learn how to create a fast and efficient system when it comes to flash ambient real estate photography. I've already started working on it, so look forward to that and I'll see you on the other side of this video. Okay, so now that we're here in Lightroom, you can see that this was shot on my A7 III on a 16-35 f4 lens at f9, so that way I had a greater depth of field going down range of the scene. Then my ISO was at ISO 500. I shot this on a tripod, and even though I was on a tripod, I raised my ISO just so that way I can get a faster shutter speed. Usually I would shoot at ISO 100 if I was trying to really care about the details, but this was just shot for a rental, which is why you can't see outside the windows. They're a little blown out in certain parts, but that's okay because we're not trying to focus on the neighbor's house. We're trying to keep the focus on the inside of the house. Okay, so now how did I get to this image while on location? This is straight out of camera, nothing's been done to it. And the first thing I did was, well, I used a circular polarizing filter to try and wipe off some of the glare that was coming onto the wood, and so that helped alleviate a lot of that strong light that was coming through the window. Then what I did was I increased the exposure from the middle of the histogram. This is about the middle of the histogram right here. It was a dark and relatively overcast day, but by just increasing my shutter speed to around 1.5 to 1.7 over the middle of the histogram around this area, I was able to achieve this image here. For this one, you can see I didn't quite hit it with the exposure at 1.5 to 1.7, but that's okay, we'll take care of it shortly. So we're going to first work on both of these images in Lightroom by making some quick adjustments. This is straight out of camera. The white balance was manually adjusted in camera on location. I was just eyeballing it to get it as close as possible, and this came out looking pretty nice. As for this one, it's a little off on the white balance. So let's go ahead and first what we're going to do is, you can see this window frame right here and how it's overblown in certain parts. I do care about those details, so let's just go ahead and bring the highlights down just so that way we can see that detail there. Then since we brought down the highlights basically all the way down to 100, it kind of decreased the exposure of the scene, and I'm not too into that. What I prefer is this peak to be slightly over to the right, about right there. That's my favorite spot. That's a sweet spot for me, is to be around this right hand third of the histogram for the exposure. Now we can do the same to this. First, looking at this peak, it needs to come over to the right, about right there. I'm not even looking at the image when I adjust that. All I'm doing is looking at the histogram and trying to get my peak to around that sweet spot right there for me. Then you can see that these highlights are blown out, so let's bring that back to about there. That looks nice. We didn't have to go down to 100 on that one, and then we'll just increase that. Now the white balance looks a little green in my opinion, so let's just oppose that with some magenta You can see how that white comes back nicely. Maybe that's a little bluish, so add a little orange to it for some warmth. Now we can shift click, edit in Photoshop, and we're going to work on this one real quick using my custom action so that we can see how fast this goes. Okay, so first we're going to duplicate the layer, then we're going to hit it with my white walls action. Boom, look at that, that looks nice, so that we can see the difference. You can tell that when you zoom in, there's still a little bit of some discoloration that's going on. It's a little orange, a little greenish over here. And then when I apply my white walls, it kind of helps alleviate that. This is with it off. That's with it on. Okay, that looks nice. Then we're going to hit it with my curves contrast, just to give it a little bit of a punch to the highlights and to the shadows. So you can see that off and on. It's a little subtle. It's a little subtle. You'll be able to see it more on your screen whenever you apply this to your own images. But that's a good image right there. You can sharpen that and straighten it, but overall that image looks great. Then I'm going to save that and close it. We'll move on to this next one, and let's go ahead and break down what we just did. So first thing we're going to do is Control or Command J to duplicate the layer. Then from here we're going to do a Control or Command U to bring up your hue saturation box. If you don't know where that's at, go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. Then we're going to decrease the saturation by -24. We're going to increase the lightness by 12. Okay. From here you have several options. You can use the quick selection tool to quickly select anything with color, because we're going to want to bring back the color that's being washed out by that adjustment layer that we just created. So that's one way. You can just do it like that, or the second way is to use the object selection tool, and then you can see how you're able to just select anything that you want a little bit more refinedly. It's a great tool to use. I like it. Or the faster way to do it is just to go to Select, Color Range, select anywhere on a white wall, and then we're going to adjust our fuzzies, our fuzziness slider, to be able to get a good selection. So anything on the screen, anything that's white is going to be selected, anything that's black is going to be not selected. And so we kind of want to get a good balance. I'm just going to go with that. That's fine right there. And then all you have to do is just hit it with an Add Layer Mask. And look at that. You can see how that brings it back off and on. This is with the adjustment layer applied globally. And then this is with the adjustment layer only applied to the white parts of the image. Now, if you were to zoom in, you'll see that the mask actually affects part of the sofa. The sofa is a gray sofa, but the selection still selected it. So if you wanted to be highly detailed about it, you could always brush that out. Just depending on what it is, you can see here, it also took part of that color off of this sofa. Now we can add that back by just brushing it back if you wanted to. Then from here, what we're going to do is just duplicate this layer again with a Control or Command J. Then we're going to do a Control or Command U to bring back our hue saturation. We're going to hit it with a -24 and a +12 on the saturation and lightness, and look at the difference that makes. It definitely brightens it up, but maybe a little bit too much. So let's drop this down to around 50% opacity. Now that looks nice. I like that. We can group these two layers together. You'll also notice that when I turn this off and on, how that color range selection affected this wood. So you can also add a layer mask to this group that we just created. Use B for brush and just quickly brush that back. Not that anybody would have noticed that, but just so that way you're aware that that does happen. That's one way to fix it. That was quick and easy. Okay, so now the next step that we have to do is going to be this curves contrast action that we applied in the last image. So we're going to do a Control Command Alt Option Shift E to merge all visible. Then what we'll do is a Control Command M to bring up our curves dialog box. If you don't know where that's at, go to Image, Adjustments, Curves, open that up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pinch down this intersection right here where the shadows are at, just like that. We're not going to do it too much because that's really going to bring down the black parts of the image and the shadows, so we don't want to do that. All we're trying to do is just pinch down a little bit. We're going to do the same thing but the opposite up here on these highlights. We're just going to pinch up on this intersection. Boom. That's it. That's the curves contrast action. It's a little bit of a subtle boost to the highlights and a little decrease to the shadows to give it a little bit of a punch. I like it. It's maybe not as noticeable to you when you're watching me do it, but if you apply this to your images, you'll definitely be able to see the difference. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I appreciate everybody coming by as always. You all take care and have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.